open the door to so much new buying that the price might end up going against my own position by quite a bit because there's so much buying coming in. So if I stay below here, I know there's always going to be sellers at lower prices. So if I can chip away at the short trade without having to take it above VWAP, it's actually preferable for me to do so. Because obviously what can happen is if I then let the price go above VWAP on the back of a failed auction, there might be so much buying in here that I can't sell against it. And for that reason, what happens a lot of the times is we end up getting this type of move, and I just wait for that to develop and then start selling up here. But that's not a lot of use if I've sold down here. So obviously if we go above VWAP, it can open the door to a Pandora's box that we can't close. Sometimes we end up losing control of the price at that point, and that's something that we don't necessarily need to do just for the sake of an extra few contracts. Now, if it brings with it obviously a lot of liquidity because of the price areas, that's possibly a little bit different, but the good example of that VWAP is perhaps the bonds this morning. You'll see the VWAP from the overnight session. This is the closing price, of course, and we go all the way to the VWAP goes all the way to the London Open. So this is basically the whole of yesterday's fixed income market, VWAP. This is the whole of yesterday's fixed income VWAP. Now, if we add in the VWAP from the closing bell, of course, it's going to bring a VWAP from 8 o'clock here. So we go back to the VWAP here. And we can see what happens. The price stays inside the bracket. The price stays inside this VWAP bracket here. It never goes above VWAP. Because this is now the London Open here, obviously we're now seeing a lot of volumes. We don't necessarily need to take the price up. And the next big wholesale price, of course, is quite a distance away. It's not like just around the corner, is it? The next big wholesale price is 161 away up here. So you'll find a lot of the times the price just stays below VWAP so that the selling algorithms are still in play. So when the price comes up, the selling algorithms are still in play, so we know we're going to get sellers at lower prices. That's 100% certain. So when we sell into those areas, we still know we're going to get the downside push. And that's what we get, the downside push. And that obviously is in line with the overall macro view that we have on bonds ever since the big bond auctions from the 10-year over here. Now, some people even do VWAPs for the whole period, and that's up to you. But when we look at the VWAP for the whole period here, and we go back before the actual auction, you'll see that the bonds have pretty much stayed below the whole VWAP ever since, because it's going to be very difficult for that VWAP to drop now, isn't it? Because the volume we get just now is nowhere near the kind of volumes that we got at the auction periods here and here. So the VWAP's always going to be up towards those prints. So I don't like seeing that. I don't like seeing that volume dominating the move, because obviously at the end of the day, the guys that took those trades, most of those guys have already taken most of those profits. So that's not a realistic representation of where the real trade is it? It's not really going to give us that storyline. So it's always best to work new VWAPs. The best VWAP is always going to be the new opens and the closes. It's going to be the biggest volumes. So when we see a VWAP changing, some people like to work VWAP against the next POC. If the POC moves lower, they start a new VWAP from the POC. They start a new VWAP from the POC. So we can start to recognize these ideas as something that we can lean against. So with the VWAP above us here, we can sell down into this. And if we can break this VWAP, it opens the door to a sell search, because now the London algorithms are going to join in with the US down below this price, and we get that extended move to the downside from the VWAP break on both sides. Should make a lot of sense. If you were paying attention, we gave a shout out for that dollar index just running into a bit of stickiness up here, and it's exactly what's happened. The dollar index has just jammed into that top edge, hasn't it? And it has gone a little bit sticky into that print, and not much you can see about it. It is what you would have expected at those prices. And you can see that it's caused the euro dollar in reverse to start reversing out of those areas. You can already see that the euro dollar, just after we called the dollar index at an end, you see the euro dollar's managed to catch a bid. You also see that the pound has caught a bid since we called it. So if you manage to buy those reversals, you've got to be able to look at that and say, wait a second, that actually worked out an absolute treat, which it did, of course.